everybody wants to be heard. I think like I am taking it from my personal experience. Everybody just want to be heard. Sometimes my customers just want to vent. When we say account manager, I know in the world of sales, the account managers can mean so many different things. So each customer is an account. Never burn bridges, right? Always network with people, always live on good terms.
I know that there's been a lot in between food science and where you are currently. So why don't you walk us through some of the key steps to how you got into account management?
If you were like me, I was in R&D and then I want to make that jump into more business side. Tell people, tell your suppliers, tell, people that you know. One of those people might just give you a chance and never look back.
Let's start first by talking about your food job. So tell me about your food job and tell me about Dempsey Foods.
Yeah, so I work at Dempsey Food, which is part of a Dempsey Corporation. We're a third generation company, a Canadian company, and I am part of the food division. And at our division, what we do is we are an ingredient distributor, and we have locations in North America as well as Europe. And my role at Dempsey Food is an account manager. Essentially, what account manager is like, we manage the relationship between Dempsey as a supplier to the food industry and the food processing, who I refer to my customers.
Well, let's talk with the term account because that sounds like it's something financial. Is that actually the case or is it totally different?
No, so when we say account manager, I know in the world of sales, the account managers can mean so many different things. Like they have different definition of what an account manager does. Let's say like in a tech sales, technology sales, or SaaS companies. In the food industry, account managers, we handle pretty much our customers. We call them accounts. So each customer is an account, and we handle the relationship from I would say prospecting all the way to like when they then become our customer and they buy products from us, then we manage that relationship through.
Okay. And then with that, following up with that relationship, so do you help the clients like they've purchased their first time and then they want to purchase from you like the 30th time? Are you the same account manager that deals with them throughout the entire process?
Yeah, typically, yes, I would be the point person. I would say, I would be like the customer's advocate for that, like at Dempsey for like any internal communications. When we, let's say, confirm like a sale, they typically then their customers purchasing person work with our customer service rep. And then that kind of like the more the transactional, I would like to place a PO for a tote of chicken fat, let's say that kind of handles the day to day. But if, let's say, there's any issues or they would like to review pricing or they're looking for new ingredients or just documentation and stuff, I would be pretty much the first person that they kind of reach out to make sure that I always have their back.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That makes sense. So, with account management, and you said you work at Dempsey, and you said you like an ingredient supplier. There are a lot of different ingredients out there. A bakery company is going to be very different than, let's say, like a meat company. So, does Dempsey specialize in one particular type of ingredient, or is it across the food industry?
Yeah, so Dempsey, we actually specialize in more technical, specialized, and innovative ingredients. So it's not the category because let's say like a citrus or a pectin. Pectin can be used in like gummies or confectionery, but also in jelly and jam making or even like cookie fillings and stuff. So it's not the category, it's really the product itself that we're specializing in, like different type of products. And when I say ingredient supplier, we are more like ingredients distributor. So we represent different multinational or local ingredients manufacturers, and then we kind of represent them to the customers. But there's also another side of the ingredient supplier world who are the ingredients manufacturers, and some of them do sell, let's say, directly to the food processors and not through a distributor.
Okay, because that was something I was wondering about because we hear about ingredient suppliers, but then we hear about the core company, and then I'm like, do companies get everything from one supplier? Do they go directly to the company? Like that, like middleman, it can get a little bit confusing
Yeah,
because like you go to these trade shows and you see like
yeah.
all the different companies, and you're like, where do I buy from?
Yeah, I can explain a little bit more even. So I personally, as an account manager, I worked for a manufacturer before, and I work for a distributor. And I think the main difference, if you are an R&D person or a purchasing person, is like ingredient manufacturers, they tend to specialize in just one type of ingredients. So, I don't know, maybe like corn or like corn starches. But in ingredient distributor, we can represent different type of manufacturers. Like let's say fiber, we can represent three different fiber manufacturers. Like if you're looking for like an oat fiber or an inulin or a corn fiber, or different type of source, like citrus fiber, like we have a collection of things, but not all ingredients distributor, like have that. Like it really varies.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So taking it a step back again, coming to like an account
Yeah.
manager, you mentioned all these like key little points, but let's talk about your day. What, or even like a week, because I can imagine every day
Yeah.
looks a little bit different. So why don't you walk me through like some of the key days that go through your life, or maybe a week, or just like the main things if a student comes up to you and asks, like, what the heck do you do?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, yeah, not a lot of people kind of understand what account manager does. My day to day, I was gonna say it's never the same. Some days I would be, deep, learning about the technical aspects of our ingredients or getting training from our suppliers, in hope that we become the expert for those ingredients. Some days I'm helping out an R&D person with their project, and let's say they're like, I need to clean up this label, I need to do some sodium reduction. How can you help me with? So I help them and provide my technical knowledge of the ingredients that we do carry. Sometimes I deal with purchasing, which is like a lot of the times is more transactional, and that's when you're like negotiating pricing, negotiating volume, or some days I work with the regulatory team and quality QA, QC. It really is never the same, but to kind of sum it up, is like we are the advocate for our customers to our internally and our manufacturers.
Okay. I love how there's these different aspects that you get to do learning, because I can imagine in ingredient sales, there's all these new ingredients that are just coming up. Like, I can't help but mention, I noticed that you have a webinar coming up for Inodal with in
With
all, the list.
Inio, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the Listeria, and Laurent was on the podcast like 2 episodes ago. So I bet that was like a totally new thing for you to learn about.
Yeah, so when I came to Dempsey, Inio, I learned a lot about Inio and what they can do. I was just really impressed at like what he's achieved, and actually like I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited to like introduce this to like more customers. So like yeah, like even like educating customers is also kind of like part of what we do, because sometimes in R&D you are the expert of your products and like what category you're working on, but you can get easily carried away to do just what you know and like forget like, oh, things, oh, maybe the technology has advanced so much that maybe I should look out there. But we are, as an account manager, there to kind of help you educate you and your team, or like even like introduce new innovative ingredients that are available for your toolbox. So it is exciting and different for sure.
Wow, it's really cool. It's almost like you're a teacher in a way, because you're learning about all these different ways that an ingredient can work, but then you're educating your customers and like really going in depth with each of them and trying to figure out what's going to work for you and how do we make your outcomes work better.
Yeah, so I think that is my approach, and every account manager is different. Some account managers have more technical background in food science and some don't. I I personally like to approach my customers. I would like to collaborate with them, and I would like to kind of, because if my customer win, I win, and I'd like to just be their partner really in their R&D. And I don't like trying to sell them things. I like to just be their partner because I think that's very different.
I'll be honest, hearing you say that's a little interesting, because I kind of take account management as being a bit salesy. Like, that is kind of what my known of account managing is. So that's not actually always the case, or it's just like there's a sales aspect to it, or Okay, you know what? Let's take a step back and like look at it from a client's perspective because I think
Sure.
that might actually help with an example. So let's talk about pectin. You mentioned that earlier. So let's
Yeah.
just say I come to a trade show, I see you, and you're at your booth, and I'm like, I want to get some pectin. Could you walk us through that process of the interest of a customer to maybe then just becoming a account underneath you?
Yeah, sure. So if I have a R&D person come looking for specific ingredients, if just anyone like if a person that doesn't really understand the food science aspect of it, or like not in the food industry, they're like, oh, I want pectin. There's only one kind of pectin in a grocery store, right? So like that's kind of what you think. But w- in the actual food industry, there's probably hundreds and hundreds different kind of pectin. So then if a customer come to me and I say, I want pectin. So my next question was like, great. I'd like to learn more about what you do so I can actually help you and recommend. I don't want to waste your time. I want to help you narrow down what is it that will work for you. So my next question would be, what are you planning to use this pectin in? And then I would ask the different processing parameter, like the different processing temperature, or like, are you boiling? Are you is it a do you need time for the pectin to set? Or I mean, do you have time for the pectin to set, or do you need it to set quickly? Time, temperature. So all the things that, academically I learned in university, it comes to be, very helpful at the very least is to not waste anybody's time, get the parameter, like, all the parameters straight, and then recommend like the product. So like from 200 different pectin, now I can narrow down to like five. And then if you're more, depending on the customer, some are more open in disclosing what they do or like their specifics to it, then we can help them narrow it down even more. But otherwise, like if they're like not comfortable sharing, that's fine with us. Then we'll send what we think works best, and then they do further testing. So that way, that's kind of like my role, and that's how I approach things. And but then there are other account managers that work a little bit differently, and that's fine. It's and different kind of style and things like that. So it's very it can be salesy. It has a sales element to it, um, but at the end of the day, like it's for me, it's fun. It's problem solving.
That's a good way of looking at it, that it's
Uh,
problem solving because you have this R&D professional or someone on the team and it's like, I have this problem. How can you help me fix it? And you said like 200 different types of pectins. Like how do you even start to figure out what the heck's the best one to
exactly.
work for it? And then when you're talking with clients, just like this maybe is like a personal question because I know that a lot of maybe students in a co-op position and then they're working with an R&D and they're like working with an account manager. Is there anything that you think would be good for somebody to know to how to approach an account manager? So what I mean by that is how do you make it more effortless, or what type of information would be the best to provide someone who's in account management if you're looking to help solve a problem?
So that's very the answer is going to be like it depends.
Okay,
So it
okay.
depends on what company you work for. Again, I think it's more like a company policy on like what they can and cannot share to like an account managers, and that's okay. And we'll try to decipher as much as we can. But if you have an account manager that you trust or like your go-to person, um, even like a high level you know explanation would be just just to kind of give you an example. Let's say I'm like, I am tasked with replacing modified cornstarch in my formulation, and you can go to your account manager and ask for a specific thing that you're looking for. Let's say I'm like, okay, I want to use pectin, or you can go to them and like, hey, um I need to replace this out. Do you have any suggestions on how I can do it? Some of my customers went as far as inviting me to come and taste their products and then ask me, okay, what do you think? What can we improve? So it really, I will give as much as you're willing to receive, kind of thing. I don't know if that makes sense. And that's kind of, yeah.
Okay.
how it goes.
No, it makes sense. I mean, the elephant in the room is there's, with the food industry, there can be a lot of secrecy in terms of product formulations or those types of things. So it does make sense. And yeah, so why don't we take a step back and hear about you? You mentioned you had a background in food science, but I know that there's been a lot in between food science and where you are currently. So why don't you walk us through some of the key steps to how you got into account management?
Yeah, so I went to University of Guelph for Bachelor of Science in Food Science and minoring in Business Administration with a co-op. So when I graduated, I already have some food industry experience. And when I was in university, I can't say that I'm familiar with what an account manager is. I don't even know that the role existed. But what was really cool was I was doing my co-op at the time at a flavor company in their QA QC, and I had the opportunity to present to their sales team like this product line, explaining. I was giving the technical presentation so that the sales team can take it as as their toolbox to their customer. And I remember that moment, I thought salespeople are just business people, like, people go to business school and whatnot. But I actually met the director of sales of that team, who I still know to this day, and become, like we part of my friends in the industry, Stan Leclerc. Um, I remember talking to him and kind of like just like, hey, how did you get to your position as like director of sales? And then he was sharing to me that he actually had a food science background and he did, quality and R&D. He had technical background, and then he kind of jumped into like sales. So I think that very moment was very intriguing to me that I was like, oh, that's very interesting. And so from then on, my focus has always been kind of like I want a technical hands-on experience. And then at some point, I am very much interested in the business aspect of things. And that's kind of like, okay, I kind of am working more towards that. So once I graduated university, I did R&D for a while in the frozen meat category, in the dry blending category, working for a private label company that works with like retailers like Loblaws, Sobeys, Kroger's in the US and things like that. From then on, I I felt like I was like, okay, I think it's time. I have some experience working with customers, how to talk to people, not just like working on the bench. I started applying for roles that are more business focused. Um, and then just, at some point, then I actually met with someone who believed in me enough, to like give me a chance. Okay, we're gonna, hire you in a technical specialist role. So it's like almost like a bridge role for me, going from like a very technical, very hands-on food science kind of role into like the world of sales. My role is partly assisting salespeople if they have like any technical questions, because not all salespeople again have technical background. So that was initially my role. Eventually, I transitioned more into a full account manager role. At some point, and then I kind of developed my sales skills there, like ingredients distributor, ingredients manufacturers, and then at some point I felt in my career that I wanted to try something different, and I came across an opportunity to kind of started my own small business. So this is my this business side of my myself, I guess. Kind of like, hey, let's see what we can do here. So I ended up opening up I opened up a franchise location of a cooking school for kids, the first one in Ontario. And, I did it for like 4 years. I really put my all into it. I ended up opening up a second location. And then my location became consistently one of the best performing location in Ontario. I learned a lot about bringing a brand to a market that has not like knows nothing about you. That kind of helped me, sharpen my entrepreneurial skills. I had to know pretty much everything about everything, but it got to the point where I kind of feel like a little bit burnt out. It's not easy being a small business owner. And the day to day was no longer bringing me joy. And I was like, I think it's time to exit the business. So I did sell my company. And then after that, I was like, I think it's time to go back to like what I really like to do. Right? I never lost that love for food. I'm always in the industry. I still attended industry network and industry events, even when I had my own small business. And just so happened, Dempsey was looking for an account manager position. And at that time, I was like I was interviewing at a few different places. And this is what I think, if anything, the nuggets that, if you're a student or like early on in your career, never burn bridges, right? Always network with people, always live on good terms. Because when you're kind of like, I was at a point where I'm like, I'm kind of outside of the industry. I wanted to go back in. So I actually then reached out to my contacts, and it was a pretty for me seamless path to kind of go back to in the industry, and given the opportunity interview or like network with people, and and then I get the options to, okay, what kind of company I want to work for? How do I want to shape my role now as a more experienced account manager? Do I want to chase like, like it's different. It was giving me my networking and my whatever I build in my throughout my career, giving me the opportunity to choose and just be really fulfilled, or making the given the option to choose a job, that a work or a career path that I am content with. And so that's how I kind of ended up with Dempsey. And I think you know the people that work there. And yeah, it's been a great journey so far.
It sounds like a great journey. And I think that it's so cool how, you had this food science degree. It was able to take you to a business side of things, and it allowed you had a passion for like cooking and all those types of things, but also come back into it because, to be able to take, I don't want to say a career break from it, but to be able to do that and then still see how that can also add value, because they say like, being able to cook is also a really useful skill in food science, because sometimes in school you can get
Yeah,
so caught up in like doing the
exactly.
scientific research that you're like, oh yeah, this is for people to cook, and being able to understand the technical details. But I love that as well, that you were able to have a taste of business, because I feel like it might be harder for someone to go from business to food science, but to go from food science to business, it sounds like it might not be as big of a jump, at least within the food industry.
Yeah, and the funny thing, and this is what of part of my kind of internal debate when I wanted to start my own business, was like, well, what if, right? Like, what if it doesn't work out, or what if I don't like it? What if there's so many what if? But I think what was helpful for me at the time was it was in the middle of COVID. It's a blessing in disguise. So I think it was more like, oh my God, like if not now, when? So let's just take a jump. And then I remember thinking this. I'm like, okay, but like what if I want to go back to the industry and people see that, what you say, like the career break, as a negative? But what I want to say is actually, one, their loss, and two, you will find people who actually really value what you've done, to take a risk and go out there, do something different, get all the experience, and that actually made, in my personal, experience, it made me a better salesperson. So when you are ready to, let's say, come back to your whatever career that you've kind of built, the right people, the right company will actually see that as a positive, and as a value. And so if you are trying to, decide on making a step to do something or not to do something, I think just do it.
It's scary advice, I'll admit, because I think a lot of us struggle with that what if. What if, like, what if the industry is going to change today? What if they're not going to value this, like, tech? I go into QC for a year instead, or I switch over to this. Like, what if no one likes that anymore, and then I'm going to be out of a job? And I feel for like younger people, it can be really scary because you don't have that experience to even know what past positions would look like. So what ifs
Yeah.
get really scary.
Personally, I think there is always a way. I think, and I'm guilty of that. I think in the beginning, like I was like, oh my God, what if I try this and I don't like it? Then switch, right? Like it is daunting. I don't want to get stuck in a place where I miss 100% of, well, I can't remember this thing, but like you just like when you don't try, I don't want to regret anything. That's my, for it's not for, again, it's not for everybody,
Yeah.
but that was my story.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's better to regret doing something than not doing something. I think
Yeah.
it's something like along those lines.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, for students or like new graduates, it's like, what if I make the wrong move? What? Because you get taught in school, like if you do wrong in a test, like, oh, I'm gonna fail the course, and then like it affects your whole, because it's so much more rigid school. But then I feel like once you actually, mess up, you're like, oh, maybe it wasn't actually that bad. So it's maybe the not having enough life experience.
Well, I think humans are more resilient than we like to believe. I think everybody, when you got to show up, you're kind of in a corner or like in a pathway, you just have to make a choice and you will figure it out. I think every human is will figure, like, there's always that a way. There's
Yeah,
always a way.
humans are very resilient. People
Yeah,
are more
exactly.
resilient than they realize, and you grow. You can look. It's nice when you're able to look back and realize, oh, that experience actually helped me gain a skill, or yeah, maybe it was a really bad time, and yeah, maybe I wouldn't want to live through that again. But then you realize, like, you wouldn't be the person you are today without those
Exactly.
experiences.
Exactly. I like that. Yeah.
Let's take a moment to hear a word from our sponsor and partner of the show, Careers Now. If you're exploring career opportunities in the food and beverage industry, Careers Now is here to help you to take your career journey to the next level. Just like Felicia highlighted the power of networking and adaptability, you too can set yourself up for success by signing up for a free Careers Now account. You'll also gain access to one-on-one career coaching to help refine your resume, find career matches, and have guidance on interviews. Whether you're starting out or looking to grow your career, Careers Now provides you with the tools and connections to help you succeed. All right, enough with that. Let's get back into the episode. Yeah, and then coming to account management and the things that you've built up along the way, looking at your job now, what would you say are like the key skills that have been important in you being an effective account manager? And then maybe just for fun, is there like one that is maybe not as obvious to someone looking from the outside in?
I was actually gonna say, the one skill that I think is very beneficial is not the typical what people imagine a salesperson should be. I think like a lot of people say, oh, negotiation skill,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you have to do. Yeah. For me personally, if I can give people advice, it's like listen and observe. I think that's like listening and observing is like the main skill that you can have as a as an account manager, to be a better account manager. And I don't have a magic formula, but honestly, just be kind. And when you kind of I think when early on in my career, I was really focused on like I have to make a sale. And I realize now, after years of experience, at the end of the day, if you are just nice and kind to people and help them when they need you, the sale will follow. So now in my career, I am less focused on like just forcing to make a sale, uh, and more about like, I just want my customer to succeed and to help them because it will come. It will follow you.
I definitely know from like when I'm on the other end and I'm like purchasing an item, I don't want, like, you can tell when someone feels like they're just like coming in for the sale, and it makes you just feel kind of like
Picky,
I
right?
yeah, you're like, I want your help, but I don't know, the way you're approaching me
Yeah.
doesn't really seem like the way I want it to be done.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think having been in the other side of the coin as well, like having been in R&D, definitely gonna help shape, the way I approach sales on this end of on this side of the coin.
That's a yeah, that
Yeah,
like that would actually make sense. And I
right.
get, with the listening that you mentioned earlier, was that like a, okay, maybe it's not silly, but was it like a eureka moment, or like, I feel like it's easy to identify when you speak poorly, or if you, oh, I missaid something in this situation. Like, I feel like it's easier to identify, but when it comes to listening, like, how did you work to improve? Is it just like a mental thing that you're just like, I should listen more, or like, How do you improve your listening skills? I guess what I'm asking.
I'm not sure if I'm the right person to answer that, but for
Okay.
me, for my again, well, personally, how I kind of I don't know, get better at listening is like when I'm going into a meeting, I just remember everybody is doing their job, right? I'm, my approach is like I everybody wants to be heard. I think like I am taking it from my personal experience. Everybody just want to be heard. Sometimes my customers just want to vent. And honestly, just be a good listener because there are informations or like there are things that you can learn from them that you can use in your job just to help them better. Again, like if somebody is, let's say, complaining, oh, I can't believe my I don't know, my boss is making me do this like sodium reduction project. It's just so annoying. They're just venting to you. But imagine if you're just in a meeting as an account manager, you're just so focused on going down all your list of things you want to tell them. Like, I have these five products. I want you to learn all about them instead of, oh, I'm just so busy. I was so swamped. There's this new project about sodium reduction. If you really listen carefully of what their struggle is, instead of I can be a more effective account manager if I can solve that sodium reduction problem than going through this five list of ingredients of what I intend to kind of show them. So I don't know. I think you kind of live and you learn. I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm trying to figure out like where where to take the conversation next with that because, I don't know, never thought that I'd hear that you get vent or like hearing clients actually vent to you. I don't know, like it's like you're just opening to my experiences to even just thinking that actually happens. And okay, so those are the skills. So you've actively worked on listening in that, and then kind of like maneuvering in that same vein is just like looking into the future because I feel like that's another thing that a lot of people, I want to be good for this role and, excel in it. But is there any skills that you're maybe currently working on to improve or maybe a technology that's important to your work? I guess what I'm going for is looking into the future. Like how do you see your role changing and how are you adjusting your skills to match with those changes?
Right. So, the food industry, from what I can see, is a very mature and a little bit of an older industry. It's been around for so long, and by that, also comes that in general, and I'm generalizing now, the food industry is a little bit slower in adopting new technology. And so if you look at like the system, let's say like inventory system or like ordering and stuff, most often than not, like you will see like a very old school looking like MS-DOS kind of like type of like PO or just people are still using Excel for tracking like things like that. So like it's a bit slower. It's not that it's not happening, it is happening just at a slower pace. Now, in terms of like account management, is that what I notice is like and this is coming from a small business. When I had my small business, all our marketing and all our efforts are all social media marketing. And I find that in the food industry, business to business side of things, not to like business to consumer, uh, we're still a little bit behind, I think, in kind of like using those kind of technology or like those social media or LinkedIn to promote what we have. It's a little bit still kind of rigid and not as as flowy. So I think in the near future we are going to catch up to kind of that sort of model. And us as an account manager, at the end of the day, we need to be able to leverage that and use that to our advantage. The one thing that is not going to change is like I think AI and the future of technology is not going to, uh, replace your ability to kind of build relationship and network to people. So we are a people's kind of type of job or career that instead of like fighting the technology, I like to embrace it and use it to your advantage. Maybe help with the background admin work or help qualifying your customers or just even like um, finding your customers through social media and stuff. I think it's going to be used a lot more than what we are using now and catching up with pretty much the rest of the different tech industry or just like the retail. and the mass marketing.
I think that's a really good point that you made with the food industry being, it's been around for many, many years, but yet it somehow is very slow at adopting. Now, I do think it probably has to do with regulations and such that, if something's new, it rightfully
Yeah.
should be analyzed and judged to see if it's good for safe consumer use. But also, yeah, it is a bit slow. That's something that I've learned. Like even company, like every decision just sometimes can take a very, very long time. And sometimes you would probably be like, just do it. It's the right solution for this. But why is it taking so long? And
Yeah.
I have also heard that a lot of the industry still runs on Excel. People really like Excel.
Yeah, I mean, Excel is great, but there are other, obviously technology that will help you be more efficient for sure.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
another thing that you pointed out that I think was also interesting is just social media and food businesses, because, it's funny, we see so much social media in terms of business to consumer sales, but there's a huge market between businesses to businesses. And I guess I'm just pointing out the interest in it, because I think that's also when, like, you're on LinkedIn and you find things that fit in that social media, like even with the Inudel, what I was saying earlier, and just seeing how you were advertising it, I was like, oh, I would have never, like I'm not prior to this having a conversation to you, but seeing like the webinar that's being promoted, or did it already happen, or is it's happening this week? I think
It already happened.
it already happened.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, 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 yeah.
but just seeing like those like social media things, like I don't know, I just think that it's a really interesting time for the whole space to be able to be
Yeah,
in
just
there.
to combine. Yeah, yeah, just to kind of utilize it more. And I guess like one of the challenges like finding the right avenue to kind of advertise business to business, because I mean LinkedIn is great, but a lot of people also, like very career focused, right? They're either looking for a job or trying to kind of just I know, being known in the industry or network and things like that. So like when you're trying to insert, oh, this product is here, come look at us. But at the very least, human can absorb so much like information and just brand awareness. I think it's just even putting it out there, using it, learning from our other like the other industry of utilizing technology. It's going to be beneficial. And such as like a podcast like yours, like learning about
Good
what is
point.
like, talk to other people. Like even my role as an account manager, if I talk to someone else that is not from the food industry, and then I tell them, oh, I'm an account manager, and it's, oh, so like you sell to like the grocery store, or like, oh, you sell, flour and sugar. I'm like, well, yeah, we can do that, but there's just so much layer that people don't know yet.
Is there anything that you wish, like the general, I mean, people listening to this podcast are probably very in tune with the food industry if they're even here, but like, is there anything that you wish that consumers as a whole would like to know about, like ingredient sales, like the ingredient sales sphere, or like, I guess, is there anything that you just wish like the general population knew more about, like your job or like the industry that you're working in?
I think, when people see your food science, like then I'm talking about the general public,
Yeah.
they think food science can be good because we're just trying to manipulate people thinking to buy more and more and more. I think I really wish that people familiarize themselves more about what we do, or like what food science is really, and learning the science of food, because um and we're sometimes we're problem solver, like for the longest time, like your other guest Lauren, with Inudal, like there's so limited number of solutions exist, as a natural anti-listeria solution. Without food science, the natural option won't exist. Like, we also rely again on 100-year-old technology that doesn't serve us anymore. Without food science, that can't happen. So we're not all bad. Sometimes we really are trying to improve the industry and the technology and give you better food and better solutions. So that's I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I actually, I feel like that's the majority of food scientists. Like it's trying
Yeah.
to, reduce sodium intake, as you mentioned earlier. Like that is because they want to help with someone's health. Like we want to be able to create a better tasting food, not
Yeah.
because it's some I don't know. There's some weird theories that get put out there that I just have to kind of question. But not the podcast to be talking about that. But
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but talking about that consumer piece, and we've talked about, you do a lot of listening into your job. You get educated from maybe some of the ingredient supply, or sorry, the manufacturers of the ingredients that you work with. But you do a lot of learning on your job, and I know that you learn from ingredients manufacturers, you learn from, conversations with maybe other professionals. But when it comes to podcasts, books, I'm thinking about things that a student might want to listen to. It doesn't have to be specific to your job, but do you have any recommendations for like media that you really enjoy that help you either with your business skills, your sales skills, or heck, maybe just like a random book that you really like?
First, I think you guys should listen to this podcast because, I personally find it interesting to know the different type of food jobs that exist in the food industry. And second, for like my own personal development, I came across Vanessa Fan Edwards actually through one of the podcasts. I ended up reading her book. So that book, it's called Captivate. So Captivate by Vanessa Fan Edwards. It teaches you kind of to learn about social cues and just like
Hmm.
social skills that I find is very helpful for any students, anyone in any industry to kind of help them how to network better because I think, some people are more comfortable than others in networking with people, with other people within the industry, and some needs kind of a little bit more guidance. I personally enjoy more guidance and just learning on how to be really effective in how I network with people. And so that book in particular, Captivate by Vanessa Van Edwards, was really helpful in kind of making me a better um, uh, person or do better in networking with people at food industry events. So I think anybody can really use that book for sure.
I love the shout out. I think that yes, let's all listen to every back episode of this
Yeah,
podcast. I love that.
yeah.
100 episodes. But I think that's a great book suggestion as well, because I think you start to go to these events and you start to identify, okay, maybe I feel like something was awkward there with how I was acting, but then you're like, but I don't know what. Like, I know what I verbally said. It's very easy to identify, oh, I felt awkward when I said something like that, or why did I act like that, or maybe how was that person presenting themselves. So to be able to read a book that's about social cues, I think that sounds like a really good suggestion.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that, when you're thinking about, oh my God, like why did I do that, or like what did I say, or I'm so worried about how I present myself.
Yeah.
Trust, everybody is worried about how they present themselves. Nobody's thinking about you. Everybody is like, oh my God, I so like if that offers a little bit of a relief, I hope that I
I
hope you
mean,
give
it's
that too.
I mean, if it's relief, I don't know if I believe you fully. No, I do. Because I feel like when I'm at an event, I'm like, these people are experienced professionals. Like, this person's running a company. This person's doing all this. Like, this person has it all together. So, like,
They really
it
don't.
can't be. Okay. It's good to know. It's good to know. Because for some reason, I'm
At,
still doing events.
at least that's what I think. To help me sleep at night.
I'll lie to myself and tell myself, no,
Right.
I'm kidding. But I think it's good to be able to have recommendations for books because, as you have mentioned, like you didn't go to school for business. Like you might have done like
Oh, yeah.
sensory understanding of individuals, but not like, again, speaking properly, social cues. Like, and these are all things that like it's cool because you can bridge it back to what you were saying earlier, being kind. It doesn't have to be because you're selling it, but it can also be like, oh, this person's feeling a little more awkward, or maybe they don't feel comfortable. How can I help ease that feeling that they're having? That, again, it's just a conversation. I've learned so much today, Felicia, about like what you do. So again, you have more clarified what an account manager is to me. It's not just like sales, but there's a lot more to it. And, I like to ask my guests just as like this one encompassing thing. If someone was interested in going into a career like yours, what one piece of advice would you give them?
I think, just network, talk to people and express. Don't be shy in expressing your interests. Like if you were like me, I was in R&D and then I want to make that jump into more business side. tell your suppliers, tell, people that you know, and one of those people might just give you a chance and never look back. Yeah.
I like that, and I love all the little pieces that you've sprinkled throughout, like the what ifs. Don't always worry about them. You might be more in your head than you think. So, thank you so much, Felicia, for coming on the show, sharing with us what you do at Dempsey, sharing what an account manager does. I hopefully this gives people a little bit more courage that if they want to take a jump in doing another career, that you definitely can. We have a great example right here, and you know, the world's always moving, and you can move with
Yeah.
it, and it's okay.